Hi guys, I'm back today. I wanted to talk about children. It's not a very easy subject to talk about, but something very, very important. And it's not a very specific concept. Children are constantly changing in their behavior and their understanding and their environment and what they go through and what they don't go through. And when it comes to funerals and children going through loss, it's really scary thinking about how and if they should be included in the elements of the funeral, what to say to them or not say to them. And I always tell families as a funeral director that above all, you know your kid more than anyone in the planet. You know where they're at behaviorally, you know how they go through situations, you know what movies they've watched, you know what conversations you've had, you know more about their specific relationship with the person that died, and you know the situation around that death and what that could mean. So balance that with the fact that children develop at very different stages. There's two elements of death that children go through different stages of understanding with, and that is that death is permanent and that death is universal. So at some point in their really, really early stages, they don't see death as either permanent or universal. It's something that just happened. This person might be gone and everyone's crying, but just like how mom comes back after I don't see her for a day while she's at work, this person's eventually gonna come back. And they don't understand that death is something that could happen to everyone that they love, to their parents, to their family members, to themselves. So as they go through life, they start understanding those two elements in different ways. They might first understand that death is permanent in the end, and when someone dies, they are gone. They don't fully understand that it could happen to anyone and everyone, including themselves. So as a parent, you kind of can have an idea of where they are in that element of behavioral development. Some of the best advice I've given is to think about the funeral and your children and think about which elements of the funeral you want to or feel comfortable including them with. I can tell you in my experience, most kids amaze people with how well they handle seeing the person that they loved in a casket, going to the wake and being able to see them and say goodbye. They actually handle it a lot better than most adults sometimes. What I've seen is that it can be more awkward and difficult and uncomfortable for children to be at the wake for a couple of hours and the whole element of seeing tons and tons of strangers to them, and tons of people that probably know who they are. So they're being sought out and spoken to by all these people that may know them because of online, because of family, but not have a day-to-day relationship with. That social element can sometimes be the most overwhelming thing for the children. Sometimes I let people know that you can think about it in separate ways. There is the wake. There's also a private time before the wake where you can bring your child to see the person that passed away and be surrounded with only very close family members. There's the wake, which gets to be very long and very social. It could be if they're older and a certain age, they might appreciate being at the wake and hearing stories they never heard of before. And sometimes the funeral directors will always seek out children that are at the wake to kind of give them some roles. Like, hey, if you could help me make sure everyone has one of these cards. Sometimes kids like being given a job or something to be included with. The other thing is the cemetery and the church. Sometimes just going to church for the ritual and the ceremony and those lasting memories. There might be songs that they hear at the funeral that they will forever connect with the ritual of saying goodbye to the person that they lost. Same thing with the cemetery. They might not fully remember the experience of being at the funeral, but they might always have a picture or a small memory of being at the cemetery, especially if there is music played or military honors, which are so reverent. I know my kids, my twins are 12, and they still talk about how powerful it was seeing military honors at their grandfather's funeral, and the way the soldiers walked and how they presented the flag and hearing taps is still a touching thing to them. So there's different things that you can break up and offer to your child. Most children are just going to feel empowered and included by simply being presented options, even if they say no to all those things. There's also a great idea is to have the children make some art or write a letter, help them write a letter. Let's think about all the ways that we miss the person that died. Let's write down all of our favorite things about this person. Let's draw a picture of maybe our favorite memory, and you can either place it in the casket or just save it for later, so that if they ever do in the future have questions, you can present to them their included art from that time. Here's a collection of all your favorite memories, some of the things they might have forgotten when they're later in life, and they can still feel like they were connected to the experience. Either way, it's important to know your children above all, to include them in ways that you feel comfortable with, to give them options to say yes or no to, and to just love them, to help them say a very meaningful goodbye so that they can understand the concept that love is the reason we grieve. It's really sad right now. You're seeing mom cry all the time right now, but as sad as I am, it's only because I loved the person that died so much. And when you love someone, you get really sad when they die. But when you love someone, you enjoy every single time that you have with them, because once you understand that nothing is permanent, you intrinsically and subconsciously make the most out of everything, which is why love and grief go hand in hand. So any way you can include your children or have conversations with them, answer their questions honestly and simply, and follow their questions. Sometimes they might shock you with the amazing depth that they already have about life and love and grief. And just be present. That's my best advice to you. The only thing I would say to avoid is to try avoiding saying things like, oh, grandfather's just sleeping, or he was such a good person, God wants him to be an angel. Things that kids might concretely, with their concrete magical thinking, take the wrong way. We don't want children to correlate death and sleep. You just never know what that's going to lead to. It could mean that now they're going to be afraid to fall asleep. They might think it might happen to them if they fall asleep, because they're finally grasping the concept that death is universal. So you want to avoid using metaphors and anything that could lead to a dangerous misconception. Like I said with, he was so good, God made him an angel. You don't want them to now subconsciously fear being good. So you just never know how concretely your child is going to take what you say. So keeping answers and responses simple and honest and following the lead of their questions is always the best strategy. And worst comes to worst, you have community around you. If you are a parent or a loved one that is grappling with how to involve or even communicate with a child about grief, there are so many resources. You might have friends that have been through this that you can reach out to. We're all humans. We've all gone through this. We're all going through this, and we need to help each other say more meaningful goodbyes. So yeah, I know that's a lot, but it's a good thing to think about, and we're always here if you want to have us answer any other questions. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.